Hello, welcome to your academy. At your academy, we have been dealing with the general prologue by Geoffrey Chaucer. We have already dealt with quite a number of characters. In last lecture, we dealt with the character portrait or the portrait of Clark from the Oxford. In today's lecture, we will deal with the portrait of the man of law from the general prologue. The character of the man of the law is placed after the portrait of Clark from the Oxford. So, man of the law would be an educated person. So, we also have to take a look at how Geoffrey Chaucer has classified the prologue, or how he has made this chronology. When he started the characters from the church, he first dealt with the nun, he dealt later with the monk, then he dealt with the friar. So these three characters were put in sequence. And then he dealt with merchant, and after the character of merchant, he came to the character of the clerk from Oxford. After the character of the clerk from the Oxford, he would talk about the man of law. Now, this man of law would be a liar. He is a man who perhaps works in the courts. Now, how does he appear to Geoffrey Chaucer? Let's try to know about him. So, without much delay, let's take up the text of the character of man of law. A sergeant of law, wary and wise, who had often gone to Paul's Walk to advise. First two verses. So there was a sergeant of law. Now this sergeant means a low-level officer. For that matter, we would say liar of law, who was there with us, and he was wary and he was wise. Now wary means careful. Now he was very careful about things that may go wrong around him. So he was a careful person who would take care of himself, of what is going around him. And he was wise. Now see, when it comes to the wise, which means that he must be related to the court, because not every Tom, Dick and Harry would be there in the court of the queen or the king. Only wise men would go there. So he is using the word wise for man of law. He used this word for clerk from the Oxford also. Clerk from the Oxford was man. Clark from the Oxford was also wise. The knight at the beginning was also wise. And the third character who we say is wise, or for whom Chaucer used the word wise, is the man of law. And then in the second verse he says that he had often gone for Paul's Walk to advise. Now this Paul's Walk was a tradition in the Elizabeth's time in England, and even in Stuart Lord's time in England, that some people were allowed to walk in the old St. Paul Cathedral to get news or to get information, and even they would advise the queen on certain matters. Now this trend or this practice was only for those people who were either wise or were either educated. Only they were given access to this portion of the cathedral, this portion of the church. And this man of law had often had the privilege of this Paul's Walk, had this privilege of walking in the St. Paul Cathedral to get information or news about the kings, about the queens, about the court. Next, there was also compact of excellence. Discreet he was, and of great reverence. Now, if you take a look at this man of law, as Chaucer is observing him, there was a compact of excellence. He was excellent. He seemed great in his duty. He seemed a man of knowledge. He was man of law. Perhaps he was man of law in real sense of the word. He had mastery over his subject, and he was discreet and full of reverence. Discreet means a person who is careful about the choice of words. what he has to speak and what he has to avoid. This man of law knew good, and he was revered for his services. He was revered for his knowledge. He was revered the way he contributed as a man of law. At least he seemed so. His words were so wise. Now, what I am telling you, that he was wise, he was discreet, he was excellent, he was revered, because he seemed at least so. He appeared to me like that. Whether he was in reality or not, I don't know, but at least he appeared to me. He seemed to me to be very wise. Now he is using this word wise second times. Now when he is using this word second times, there could be a doubt in Geoffrey Chaucer's mind about the man of law, whether he is really wise or not. He told us in the very first verse that he is wise, and now he is repeating this wise, but before repeating this word wise, he told us that he seemed so. What I am telling you, that he was discreet, he was sober, he was wise, he was revered, it seemed to me like that. Whether he was or not, I don't know. Now, here you have to keep in mind that even those people who were involved with the politics or with the law, even today we understand that people are greatly corrupt, those who deal with laws, whether they are liars, whether they are judges. You would come across people who would often, whom you would often see criticizing them. And even in Chaucer's times, perhaps those people who were related to law or connected with the law were not good. But Geoffrey Chaucer had an impression of this liar to be good, so he said so, and then he immediately corrects himself. If I am wrong, I am telling you because he seemed so. He looked like that. He appeared to me like that. He was a discreet person. He was a wise man and all those things. So that is why I told you such stuff about him. Often he sat as justice in assize by patent or commission from the crown. Assize was a formal court, who would be established in different counties of England at intervals. And it was not a permanent court, but he sat as justice, which means as judge also at many times. Now he was asked, that was by the permission of the crown, maybe by the permission of the king or permission of the queen or permission of whosoever was in that position, that who would order these people to sit as justice in these assize, in these formal courts which would be established at intervals, and these courts would usually deal with the civil and criminal cases. Because of learning and his high renown, he took large fees and many robes could own. Because of his great learning and reverence, and rather renown, he was very renowned liar, and he was well educated, so he would take huge fees. Now he is the real liar. Even in contemporary times, you will find liars, those who are good, they charge a hefty amount of fees. So this was a liar who would charge hefty amount of fee. And because of this, he could own a lot of robes. Now this is in contrast to the clerk. Clerk owned nothing, but man of law owns a lot, or he could own. Perhaps he does not know, Geoffrey Chaucer, if he really owns or not, but he could own because he charges hefty, he charges large fees, huge fees. So great a purchaser was never known, and he was a great purchaser, which means perhaps he owned. There is a slight, doubt, because he earlier used the word could. He could own. Whether he owned or not is not known, is unknown to us, because this could keeps us in doubt. He has the ability to purchase, but whether he purchases or not is not known. And then he says that there was no other purchaser greater than him, better than him. He had a lot of money, he could purchase. Whether he purchases or not is still ambiguous. There is still ambiguity. We do not know. He can purchase, whether he purchases or not, Geoffrey Chaucer is not very clear, and he is not telling us about it very clearly. Reasons better known to him, or maybe perhaps it will get revealed to us as we keep reading the portrait of the man of law, where all was fee simple to him in effect, wherefore his claims could never be suspect. He was a great liar, and things to him were very simple. He had great knowledge of the law, and whenever he said anything or whenever he took a case, he would win that case. There was no other liar, no other man of law who can come and oppose the opinions or arguments of this man of law. Nowhere a man so busy of his class, and yet he seemed much busier than he was. He says that it's the case that mostly these people who are related to the law, liars, judges, they are usually busy. But this man seemed unusually busy. He was not that busy, but he pretended that he was very busy. He had too many cases to deal with. He had no free time. Now, this is slightly ironical. This is slightly tongue-in-cheek. So, we are not getting exactly what kind of the character the man of law is. And even in the description of this character, Geoffrey Chaucer himself seems to be at odds. He is not having a clarity in his mind that how he would present to us the character of the man of law. For example, when it came to monk, he outrightly wrote about monk, he outrightly wrote about friar, he outrightly wrote about clerk without any suspicion, without any doubt, without any hesitation. But there seems to be an element of hesitation in the portrait of the man of law. All cases and all judgments could he cite that from King William's times were apposite. Now see, one of the best trait that a liar can have is remember the cases that have bygone. Remember the judgments that have been passed on different kinds of cases, and then correlate those cases with the present time. And about him it is said that he would remember all the cases from the times of King Williams. Now King William would be ruling England in 12th century and Geoffrey Chaucer is writing in 14th century. So there is a time period of 200 years, and this man of law knows all the cases of 200 years and judgments passed on various cases, and he could make opposite of that. He could make relations, he could relate those cases with any contemporary case that he takes up. Now here again Geoffrey Chaucer is exaggerating the portrait of the man of law. Exaggeration means saying something out of the way, praising limitlessly, praising without any limit, I would rather say. In Urdu we say बढ़ा चढ़ा के पेश करना. That is what exaggeration is. So he is exaggerating the character of the man of law, and he could draw a contract so explicit not any man could fault therefrom elicit. Whenever there came this opportunity to relate an old case with the present times, there was not a man who could draw a reaction to what he has said. For example, if you have seen the proceedings of the court, you would see the two liars who are arguing for or against a particular case. There are people who say that I object, my lord, but no one can object to those arguments that are made by the man of law, but by this man of law about whom Geoffrey Chaucer is talking. And every statue he would verbatim quote, he rode but badly in a medley coat. Verbatim, exactly would he quote any case from King William's times to the present to the present day, to the Chaucer's times, but he could not ride well, and his coat was also not in great shape. So there seems to be a problem with this, with the man of law. Now you will find two things. Those people who are presented to us by Geoffrey Chaucer as good in studies, good in their deeds, good in their duties, they are not good with horses, with clothes, as is the case with, say for example, clerk, as is the case with the knight. So is the case with the man of law. Belted in a silken sash with little bars, but of his dress no more particulars. Sash means a colorful ribbon. Now he is wearing a colorful ribbon, and besides this colorful ribbon, Geoffrey Chaucer tells us that there are some little bars on his clothes. Besides this, there is not much that I can tell about his particulars, that I can tell about his clothes. So that was the portrait of the man of law. Now, there are few things in this portrait of man of law. One, there is not great clarity in the mind of Geoffrey Chaucer when he is writing the portrait of man of law. He does not really know if this man of law is wise or is not wise. He does not seriously know whether he is a good man of law or a bad man of law. And he therefore keeps ambiguity. He does not tell us clearly if he is wise or if he is not wise, and then he tells us about his efforts, his learnings of the law, his knowledge about the law, and even there he makes exaggeration. For example, he says he remembers all the cases from King William's times, which is a time period of 200 years. And for that matter, it is very difficult to find a relevance of a case that was solved 200 years later, because many things change over time. Now, therefore, the way this portrait has been written by Geoffrey Chaucer, it would be placed in the portraits of those characters wherein Geoffrey Chaucer himself is not pretty sure whether he wants to praise that character or he does not want to praise that character, whether he wants to present us a real a real account of that person or not. So this would be among those portraits, among those characters which would be ambiguous in nature, wherein there would be less clarity and more ambiguity. That is all we have at your academy today. I hope that this lecture was helpful for you. Thank you for watching, and you can continue watching lectures on the general prologue. You can click here to watch the next lecture on from the general prologue, which would be most probably on the character of Franklin, and you can click here on this end screen, and this would take you to the playlist section of Geoffrey Chaucer or the prologue, wherein you can watch all the lectures on the general prologue. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to share, like, comment and subscribe your academy for more interesting stuff. Keep watching your academy.